This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
We lost a true music icon, legend, rock royalty, whatever you want to call it, late last week in John Hutton, or should I say just Hutton. He gained that one name familiarity status thing, a long time ago, right up there with Madonna, Cher, Sting, Anyway, I've known the Hutton family for most of my life, and their contributions to this province have been nothing short of immense, whether it's through music, the arts, business, medicine, sports, politics, and all of them successful characters in their own right, in their own Hutton way. And I remember like it was yesterday, the papery smell, the creaky wooden floors of the old music store, Hutton's Music downtown. I actually looked forward to picking up my piano books there during the bustle down there on a Saturday afternoon. Never practiced much, but I like picking up the books. Anyway, enough out of me. Allow me to welcome to the program two close friends and longtime bandmates of Hutton. That would be Bill Sharp of the Bruisers, of course, and Bruce Blackwood, who played with Hutton in the band 12 Gauge, legend himself. And full disclosure, both current bandmates of mine. Good morning, Bill and Bruce.
Morning. How you doing?
Morning, Buzz. Thanks a lot for making some time. I know it's a few days after the fact, but we weren't letting this go without giving proper due to John. I'll ask you first, Bill. How do you put Hutton into words?
Well, I've been working and playing and hanging around with John since 1968. The only word I could really use is brother. We played together, we laughed together, we traveled together, we fought together, and we always literally kissed and made up. And from 1968, he was 16 until 4 days ago in the hospital, I was with John Hutton, and it's just natural. And to me, he's an icon in regards to music, not for just playing, but for what he helped create in the music industry in St. John's. And no matter what happens to John or any of it like that, what he's going to leave behind is for the future generations of musicians, and it's brilliant and it's important.
Bruce, over to you. You guys rocked it out with 12 Gauge back in the day, among other things. How are you feeling about all this? How do you feel about the loss of John?
Well, we're all very saddened about the loss. We're going to miss him. Like, as Bill, I could say ditto to what Bill said. We've been friends for the longest time, back since we were teenagers, playing in different bands. Did really well with 12 Gauge. That was a great bit of fun. Played in Foxy with Billy for a number of years. He's, just been one of the guys. So it's kind of surreal to see that he's actually gone.
Yeah, and without getting, too personal into it, I mean, John I keep saying John, but we only call him Hutton. He had a pre-existing condition, of course, that recently worsened, but made sure he contacted everybody, didn't he? And involved everybody in his send-off, and maybe even a little bit of scotch, eh?
Well, right to the end, he was John. He went his own way. He was up, being himself the whole time. He didn't want it to be sad for everyone that was there. He was just, and Bill, you can add something there too.
For those that know John, like really know John, he didn't go out quietly. He all I can say is he had a ball. He had a party. He had his closest friends. He had his immediate family, Karen, and her family, and we spent the whole afternoon together. And he knew we have been dealing with this since 2020, and him and I spoke about it intensely. It just so happened he was supposed to be, he was given a shorter lifespan back in 2020, and through developments of respiration, through COVID research, John had benefits from that in getting drug updates that kept him alive and functioning, doing well, much longer than he was supposed to last. But I got to say, we were very surprised when this came on so suddenly last week. It wasn't expected. It was only a couple of weeks ago John was in Mexico on vacation. So he never suffered long. He never suffered in excess. But when it came fast. And he just faced it up man to man and dealt with it.
Yeah, it's you mentioned kiss and make up, Bill. This happens, and we always wonder about it. I almost hesitate to ask you for one incident, either you or Bruce, or one memory that you have that really stands out. Is it possible to isolate one, or is it just a conglomeration of just of
pretty hard? I mean, there's so many years of different things that have happened. Good and bad, but we've always been great close friends, like myself and Bill. I don't know if you can pick one out, Bill.
But with John, there's so much. I can tell stories that I'm not allowed to tell. We were saying about like the transit. Like John was involved with Music NL, and he was involved with moving forward with the industry. And with myself and John, we planned a lot of things. We're great planners and developers. That's why we put our Billy and the Bruisers band together 35 years ago, and it's still intact with basically the same members. Like we say, the only way you can get out is if you die. You're not allowed to quit. So
it's like the mafia.
We've kept that. Yeah, it's like mafia. So we've had that, but like things like the Pay It Forward, where we work with Chrissy Andrews, and like under that, like John and the rest of us, we developed almost $5 million over the years for needy situations through music for our province, and he was proud of that. He was also proud with some of the innovations in music, and John brought the first booking agency, actual bona fide booking agency, where you could book between Newfoundland and Canada and the rest of the world. I mean, there's so many things he did like that. And the ECMAs, he started Music NL with Parker and a few of the good buddies, all of us. I mean, the legacy is huge for John. And, well, like I said, picking out one incident, big concerts, where we did the Bruiser concert, where we brought in the symphony. We played 5 symphony jobs. And big sound, it made us excited and just made us always want to move forward. But John is always moving forward, and that's our motto: move forward, develop. And that's what he did.
Last comment from each of you, and then we're going to play a little bit of a memory right after. But quickly, Bill and Bruce, how should people remember John Hutton?
Go ahead, Bruce.
You can remember him just as you met him, because I think every single person that met him, he had some impact on them, especially all the musicians. I mean, there are countless people who talk about how John did something for him from Hutton's Music Store, or just helping them out. So that's
Bill?
Yeah. So in remembering John Hutton, I'll just mention, if you don't mind, Brian, this coming Sunday at the Jag Sound House, we're doing a celebration of life concert for John, featuring Billy and the Bruisers, Kellyanne Evans, Scott Gowdy, Bruce Blackwood with 12 Gauge and Foxy, Sean Harris, and David McGrath, David Guy, etc. And it's going to be an 8 to 10:30 show. Admission by donation. All funds. This is the important part. All funds earned by donation will go to establishing the John Hutton Memorial Music Scholarship. We'll probably also open a GoFundMe scholarship fund for that as well, right? So for people that want to donate.
Fantastic. The Jag this weekend, and the family and the foundation. That is such a great idea, and only fitting for a guy like John, and gregariously personality, just what a guy. Buzz, thanks very much for making time. I know it's been a tough few days, and I wanted to give you a little bit of time to breathe on that. But thanks again, fellas. We'll see you soon.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go right to line number 2, and Merv Wiseman, you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for putting me on, and very interesting preamble. First of all, before I speak to the food pastry issue that I called on, I want to extend my condolences, to the Hutton family. And boy, let me tell you, it's very impressive. What an institution! And nothing less than an institution, from what this person created during his lifetime, and very amazed with that.
Absolutely, John. Murph, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, a bit of a early call this morning from up here. I'm in Toronto, actually.
Oh, very good.
But I wanted to squeeze in some comments. I'm up here for for some medical reasons, and it's a protocol checkup.
Yes, I hope you're doing okay with that after what you've already been through. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So far, so good. But look, it would be seriously remiss if I didn't get my comments in. I know other committee members will be calling throughout the week on the announcement that was made by the minister on Friday. And of course, we want to put the positive up front and say that we made significant progress, and we feel very, very good about that. But in the face of that, Brian, we're not entirely satisfied as a committee that we've achieved our goals by a long shot. And I'm referring specifically to the absence of a new procedures and process, for the South Coast and for the West Coast. And, we've received a lot over the last few days and over the weekend through social media, some of it not so kind, if I could say that. But others, expressions of frustration, no question about that. And, what we want to say as a committee is that, look, we work really long and hard as a volunteer group, and by no means are we going to relent and let, the people that joined the group down. We want to continue to build on some of the progress that we made. And I know our chair, Barry Feltham, is very, very concerned about doing exactly that. But, just let me say very quickly, again, within the context of the announcement on the East Coast with the Northern Cod, it featured within the context of the rationale that was applied, the issue of safety, probably right up front, not probably, but it was more so up front than anything. It featured the rationale of safety. But as we flipped over to the South Coast and the West Coast, we're back to 3 days a week, and safety is no longer present. So, that is a serious inconsistency as far as we're concerned, as far as I'm concerned. And when you try to piece together the dots on this, I keep referring to connecting the dots, the same status for the COD exists in the maritime provinces, the very same status as on the South Coast and the West Coast. And, in fact, in areas of the Gulf, they're talking about, that cod could become extinct. And this is a scientific peer review that has come up with that conclusion, but yet they're allowed the 7 days a week because of the safety issue. So, where does that stand? And how do we rationalize this? And, can we have it addressed and try to see if we can meet the needs of those people along that coastline,
Yeah, it seems like baby steps. I mean, there was some. Would you concede that there was some, adherence to the response in the survey that they got, and some, progress? Would you say any? You're not going to get it all in one fell swoop, are you?
No, absolutely. Not expecting that at all. But, we're satisfied that we made the kind of progress that we kind of expected to make along the East Coast and the Northern Cod. And certainly, as far as the survey is concerned, nothing surprising there because, what we heard is what we knew. So no surprises there. But certainly feel very let down and with regard to the South Coast and the West Coast and so on. And in the context of what I just said, with the maritime provinces, this is rationale that this doesn't make any sense. And I can tell you that there's no way this has been established through precedents in the commercial fishery that fish management measures cannot usurp or can in any way trump the issue of safety. And so this is essentially what's happening. And if we're going to make the assumption here that the 3 days on the South Coast and other coasts and the West Coast is being made on the basis of conservation, well, look, this is not about conservation. This really is not boiled down to conservation. We can have that discussion, and we're all there for it. But this is the impacts of what was going to take place in the food fishery along this coast is not about conservation. And it's been said as well that the minister is making a decision based on scientific evidence. Well, if they want to look at science and what the recommendations of that, Yeah, let's look at some of the predation, that comes from the grey seals and what's impacting the cod in the Gulf and along the south coast as these, predators start to expand their region and so on and so forth. Let's make some real scientific decisions and talk about conservation, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that. And I think on that basis, we had to say that the decision was not a good decision. So now it's down to a big issue of equity and fairness. And I think people are feeling that they're not being treated fair, and there's a lot of pushback from that, right?
Yeah, in fairness, there's a lot of curiosity as to how much the food fishery actually impacts the stocks and the science towards that. I mean, the minister is not necessarily, doing this in a vacuum. It's all the advice and all the science that she gets. So either then we have a bigger problem if the science isn't worth what it's, that's been the argument for years, hasn't it?
Absolutely. If we're going to be consistent with science, though, we have to look at some of the more bigger measures that we would want to see. Certainly with foreign overfishing and those until the bank, and through the NAFO arrangement, we make an allocation with the northern cod in the last few years. First thing that Canada has to do is allocate several thousand tons of fish to our NAFO partners. So essentially what we're looking at now, we really have Spain and Portugal and other NAFO countries that really has been allocated infinitely more codfish than the residents of our own province. So the whole argument just expands out in so many different ways, and like I say, there's just so many things to the entire equation, and there's nothing simple about making a decision about considering all the other impacts that's going to follow through.
Yeah, getting a calculation as to how much we have to allocate, for other fishers outside of our province, whether foreign or elsewhere, and how that impacts what we can take has always been the bee in the bonnet. I mean, look, the trade-off of our fish resource, for other quid pro quo over the years has been absolutely shocking and ridiculous. Whether at various points in our time that it's been proven, whether or not through the federal government, that one thing was traded off for another, and it turned out a lot of times those were allocations for quotas in offshore draggers and that sort of thing. And it still goes on to this day. There is an allocation for other countries. And the question is whether or not we should have to be, holding our nets in exchange for others. I mean, that calculation will be there forever and a day. Merv, I've got to get off to another call, but I'll give you a minute to wrap up there.
Well, yeah, look, just as quickly as I can. I really appreciate the time.
No, sir.
In terms of, foreign allocations and the impact of foreign fishing, Brian, look, I was reminded last week by a person who has done the research that there hasn't been a citation issued from Canada in over 4 years, despite the hundreds and hundreds of violations of foreign trawlers coming in and catching the cod. They have no problem, turning and looking the other way. But when it comes to strict enforcement and so on along the south coast and the west coast on a harmless food fishery, then it doesn't seem to have any problem. So that's where we're having the big problem. And excuse me if we have to fight on that basis. But thank you again, Brian, and I know we're going to hear more. Yeah,
I just harken back. Do you remember the Estai? In the late '90s, that the Spanish, and I was in the courtroom, and the Spanish trawler fisherman, the captain, stood up. He had been arrested, and here he was, and he was getting all the publicity. We actually arrested a Spanish trawler, captain of the Spanish trawler, the Estai, for suspected illegal fishing. And the judge said, "Here's, we're going to let you go, but you have to abide by these conditions." And he said, "No." He said, "I'll be fishing. I'm just going to go right back at it." And sure enough, he did, and that was in '95. So not a lot has changed since then, unless someone can point me to otherwise.
Yes, I remember it very well. So just to wrap a couple seconds on the issue of safety. We want everybody to be safe and send that message. We're going to hear it a whole lot more on the safety front as time proceeds. But, along the south coast, an area in the summer where it's dense and heavy fog and wind on the land and so on, they couldn't have picked the worst place to usurp, if I could use that word, the issue of safety. So we'll leave it there.
Appreciate it, Merv. I hope you're well, and good luck with everything up along.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Care. Bye.
Thanks, Merv.
The best of Open Line returns shortly.
All right, to line number 3. And Carl Slaney, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Brian. How are you?
Morning, Carl. Not bad for a Tuesday, which I have to keep reminding myself of, just so it's planted in there firmly with that holiday yesterday. It just messes me up completely.
Good job. I see you got lots of topics on the go this morning. Sorry for the loss of your friend, Mr. Hutton. I'm a big fan, like many people, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And he touched many people in the province.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Today, I'd like to bring you up to speed on some exchanges associated with the environmental mess at the Fortune Head Ecological Reserve. You and I talked about it in the past. Patty, I had a chat with Patty about it over the years, and lots of people in the Department of the Environment, Department of Fisheries, all the various departments in the government of Newfoundland, and basically hitting the wall here. Got a letter back from Minister Chris Tibbs, and basically it seems like they're going to do nothing about it. Just to bring you up to square, some of your listeners might not know exactly what's going on here, but the Department of the Environment operates an ecological reserve on the Burin Peninsula. And the words from the minister, I sent him a letter, obviously, a bunch of videos, all kinds of information. And his comments are, what I sent him was helpful illustrating the significance of the site, the ongoing erosion issues, and the resulting accumulation of garbage and debris in the ocean. So that's what the minister knows, and that's what I know, and that's what the taxpayers know. The next line, I guess, in this letter, he says that the site assessment report was prepared by Stantec, an engineering company, and estimates the cleanup cost to be between $3 and $11 million. For the people of the Burin Peninsula, the concerns about the environment, the concerns about tourism, the concerns about an ecological reserve in a state of repair that anybody would be ashamed of is an issue for the people of the Burin Peninsula. But the costs associated with cleaning this mess up between $3 and $11 million, estimated in 2025, should be a concern for every taxpayer. All you fine people in St. John's and other places in Newfoundland are going to have to pay for this at some point.
Yeah, that's quite a difference too, Carl. Like 3 to 11 million. That's quite the disparity. I don't know what you're getting for 3 versus 11. That's a real difference in estimates. But sorry, it just jumps out at me. But go ahead.
Okay, let's split the difference with $7 million. So the government of Newfoundland took over this area of the coast in 1994, I think. At that time, the site was known to be a garbage dump. And at that time, the government of Newfoundland and the town of Fortune repaired it, remediated it to the regulations of the day. And you know what the cost was? A total of $50,000.
Yeah.
23 years later, or 30 years later, now we're up to about $7 million. And does anybody listening to this, or your fine self, think that next year the cost is going to go down, or the year after the cost is going to go down? It'd be a darn fool. The thing is deteriorating every day, and the government of Newfoundland, not Minister Tibbs, not the Progressive Conservative government, past governments have known about this since 2003, which is 23 years ago. In 23 years, they've done nothing. I'm no expert on very much, but I declare myself today an expert on what went on over there in the last 5 years because I've been there. I've been researching it. I've been talking to all these people, and I can guarantee you they haven't spent 50 cents out there in the last 23 years, but at some point, and they can kick the can down the road if they want. Not if they want, they obviously will.
What is the last word that you received from government, whether it's Chris Tibbs or anyone?
No, this is the report. I'm reading a letter here now from April 14th from Chris Tibbs, and basically saying that they recognize the importance of this work and will continue to consider cost-effective options and will explore alternative funding avenues to complete the work. Now, this is the response that I got to a letter where I asked the minister, is it illegal what's going on here? He never answered that question. And I also copied the Department of Fisheries, Joanne Thompson's office. And she was kind enough, or one of her delegates was kind enough to also send me a response.
When you say illegal, do you mean environmental damage, like to environmental laws, or something more specific?
Okay, I'll give you a specific. Is it illegal for me, you, or anyone, including the Department of Environment, Conservation, and Climate Change, operate a facility that allows garbage to fall into the ocean environment, blow up into the land-based environment? The trees are full of garbage, the coastline is full of garbage, and the ocean is full of garbage. Is it illegal? So I asked Minister Tibbs. He didn't answer it, obviously, or unfortunately. I asked the Minister of Fisheries, and they didn't answer it either. But they did give me a nice explanation of their responsibilities, other people's responsibilities, and they're saying it's not their responsibility, but they're going to push it out to the Department of the Environment and Climate Change, Government of Canada, Minister Julie de Bruijn. I've also wrote her a letter, and I got no response, but I'll continue that game. But either way, when it comes down to it, if you, Brian Callahan, we're polluting your place, your house, your land, your cabin, your whatever, and you're allowing debris to go into the ocean, the question was, is it illegal? And nobody ever answered it. What do you think? Do you think it's illegal to be allowing garbage from your property to go into the land-based environment and the marine environment? Do you think it's illegal?
I don't know. If it's illegal, then every sewage outfall could be illegal, maybe, unless it's covered by a municipal bylaw. I'll tell you this, your frustration, Carl, over the years, and I feel it's palpable through the phone. You know, it's a crying shame. I don't know if it's illegal, but it's a crying shame that you can't see these 500 million-year-old fossils for the garbage. That whole area is tainted like that. That, if it's possible to put that in a law and have that illegal, that would be illegal in my, in your own theoretical viewpoint. But, it depends. I guess there are environmental laws all over the province that allow a certain amount of garbage and a certain amount of outfall to fall into the ocean and to go in there because the infrastructure is not in place to do anything else with it. But in a place like this, which should be protected, no question, because of its, needless to say, the hundreds of million-year-old preserved fossils in that area, and what a site it could be. It's an ecological reserve, but, it doesn't seem like it's being taken care of that way. I'll give you that.
I appreciate your comments on that. And, like you say, we got a group in the province, in the government today, we're looking out for the environment, looking out to the natural resources of this province. The natural resources of this province include fortune heads, ecological situation, the geology and the fossils out there. All that is very important and a resort for the Bjorn Peninsula. But the management of this government, past governments, for 23 years have known that this is a problem, have ignored the problem, and ignored that site. But today, I'm sure, or I think, pretty sure, that the government is creating new reserves. That there's 4 or 5 of them that are being created. They're going to make new reserves. So they're going to put this one on hold. And, by the way, they continue to advertise this as a geological experience for our tourists. They allow the garbage to run down the hill. They got no signs of any kind. There's no garbage can of any kind. There's no indication of any kind of what fossils might be there. The signs haven't been able to read them in 15 years. And the whole thing is if I was a tourist operator and I operated something like that, I'd expect someone to call me a slumlord. That's the nature of it. You let it fall down to the point that it's useless, And not only useless, if it was just useless and we hit a net zero and it was just another piece of coast that didn't hurt nobody, didn't help nobody, touche. But the way they've managed it, they've mismanaged it into the state that it is today. And the fine people of Newfoundland, not this year, not next year, but you will inherit a $7, $8, $9, $10 million bill for this mismanagement. And like everything, I suppose, if you were going to manage your books in your personal house and you decided to stop paying bills and stop paying your liabilities, it's pretty easy to increase your financial situation. You look better than you should. But my question is, how does this $8 million, $7 million liability get recorded in the books of the government of Newfoundland? And by not dealing with it this year, I think next year is going to be a little bit more. And the year after is going to be a little bit more. And it'd be a damn fool to think it's going to get any cheaper. But anyway, I really appreciate the work done by yourself, Paddy Daly, the fine folks at CBC that did a wonderful little clips on it. The NTV folks had a go at it. And really appreciate all that coverage and that help. Some local people here on the peninsula that helped. Really appreciate that as well. And we're going to continue with the new minister, or not new minister, new department, who might be responsible or have some interest in this, Miss Julie de Brugen, in the government of Canada. Fortune Head falls within the province of Newfoundland and falls within the province of Canada, government of Canada's jurisdiction. And I don't know, I'd love to see somebody tell me outright that this is not illegal, and then I'd go on about my own business and find something else to be at. Today, I'm pretty concerned and pretty sure that this is the illegal activity done by the government, and the government of Newfoundland, the Environment Climate Change Department, holds two departments under that umbrella. One is natural areas that operate this site. The other one is pollution prevention. These are the people that enforce all the regulations. So these two departments, obviously under the same umbrella, under Chris Tibbs' guidance, are not looking at this very hardly, I don't think, or are in denial. But either way, like most things, if you leave it alone, it's going to get worse, I'd say. Yeah,
it's been left by previous administrations as well, and the longer you leave it, just like your house, if you leave it that long, it's going to cost more to fix it in the long run. And it's just one of those situations where I'm just wondering, just last quick question, Carl, have you gotten a legal opinion, an actual legal opinion from a lawyer that you may or not have? Is this just, are you wondering, or have you gotten an opinion?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm just old Joe Blow on the street. Yep. I got no money. The government got all the money. The government got all the resources. And the government got the legal opinion. The government also got an engineering opinion from an engineering company with expertise. And that engineering company was a pre-approved company with 10 or 12 others that the government of Newfoundland picked from when they wanted to do this assessment. They did it last year in 2025, the past government, and that engineering specialist company dictated, used the government's own regulations as the terms of reference, and they identified in the report many cases where there's contradictions to the regulations and the laws. And I'll leave you with this.
Yep.
They gave the government mandatory recommendations. Now, so you can go and plant grass, you can do this, you can do that, but the mandatory ones, these are not ones you get to choose. This is the one that you got to do in order to be compliant with the regulations of the Department of the Environment, Climate Change, Chris Tibbs, and by the laws of the province of Newfoundland.
Carl, I got to get off to the news. Look,
thank you. Thank you so very, very much for all you've done to help us along, and you have a great day.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number one as promised and welcome the chairperson for the Canadian Federation of Students for Newfoundland and Labrador, Nicholas Keogh. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Our pleasure. What's up?
Yeah, so essentially across the country, CFS representatives are calling in and making the news known about today being 50 years to the day since Canada actually signed the UN's International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. And that's a really important day, specifically for our federation and for the student movement nationally, because that actually included a commitment from Canada to recognize the right to an education and to make a formal commitment towards the progressive introduction of free education, which is obviously something that we advocate for as a federation, but it's something that we feel has been lost over the last 50 years. And to have almost no progress, or actually essentially no progress towards this goal within 50 years after signing this, it's really disappointing. And we wanted to highlight the fact that from our perspective, the federal government has really let down the people of this country by not prioritizing access to post-secondary education as a priority. Yeah, they were, pretty much protected under this. I'm not even going to try to attempt the acronym. I've seen some wild acronyms, Nicholas, over the years, and this one takes cake, so I'm not even going to try it. But look, the basics, right? The right to work, fair wages, right to form unions, and safe working. I mean, this is very basic stuff. Social insurance numbers and the standard of living and education and health and culture. Why has it, and where is the deterioration? Where is where's the urgency? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's really disappointing. If you look at the last 50 years, we're looking back a lot because it's obviously today is the 50-year anniversary. But in 1977, immediately after this, we saw the government end the 50-50 cost-sharing model between the federal and provincial governments for post-secondary education, which had a huge negative impact. And then in 1996, we saw another reform that cut $6 billion from post-secondary education federally. And I think that it is kind of what they've done is they pass the buck onto provincial governments. And I am no stranger to criticizing the provincial government for underfunding education. I definitely blame the provincial government as well, but I think that we let the federal government off the hook often because it happened a few decades ago. But the thing is, everybody in Canada has a right to access education, and we should have free post-secondary education for everybody. And I think it really also, just for this province, there's an extra added kind of layer to this because we are the province with the lowest rate of people having a bachelor's degree. We don't have as much educational opportunities here. And I think that it is the country's responsibility to make sure that there is equal access to post-secondary education in every province. What's required here? Is it an updating of it? Is it, some might argue downloading it out of the province is a good thing because it's closer to the ground roots of it and say in your individual jurisdiction or given, the demographics for your region. But is it a funding thing? Did it get away? Should it, what's the... is there a balance here between whether or not how much the provincial jurisdiction should be governing this and the feds overseeing it to ensure that it stays in step? I mean, the mandate of higher education and being equally accessible is a tough one just for the individual jurisdiction. Would you agree? I mean, as far as having the infrastructure or even the economic ability to be able to bring it up to standard. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it is in ways naive to assume that each province would have the same ability to provide that for their citizens. And I think that is why the federal government really has a responsibility here to step in and provide that funding. It's been huge cuts over the last few decades, and specifically in 1996 with the Canada Health and Social Transfer, it kind of combines funding for health and for education and for other things, which allows a lot of leeway for the provinces to use it in whatever way they feel they have to. But unfortunately, that often ends up with certain social services not being funded adequately. Yeah. So I think that what is really important is we, as Canadians, recenter the idea that the federal government is also responsible for post-secondary education. I know I've been in meetings with federal MPs who say, oh, it's not our responsibility, it's the provincial government's. And I think it's really sad that we've let it get to that point because we've let the federal government completely erode funding. Can we connect the dots here to what's happening at MUN right now, like on a larger scale? Absolutely, because I think as much as the provincial government has defunded MUN, the federal government would have defunded post-secondary education as a whole before that. And so it leaves so much more of the brunt on the provincial government. And we need to see investment from both, but we need to see investment in post-secondary education, and it definitely has an impact on what's happening in MUN. It's definitely a large cause, if not the most major cause, is the defunding of education by our provincial and federal governments.
Is this like really flying below the radar? Just to remind me again, the 50th anniversary of the signing of the covenant, is that correct? Or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is when it was established. How much... over the years, that's 50 years of its existence. At least it hasn't, has it any deteriorated, or are we just looking at no progress?
I mean, I would say deteriorated because obviously over the last 50 years, tuition has increased, and so we haven't gotten closer to free education. We've gotten further from it, and we've also obviously seen a deterioration in funding overall.
Well, we know the importance of education. And not only that, the free right, the access to it. And there are all kinds of barriers that we can get into about that. But unfortunately, I'm right at the break. Nicholas, I'll just give you a minute there to wrap up. Just remind us again, the 50th anniversary of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, ICESCR. You can't even really pronounce that one, so it doesn't have a ring to it.
Yes, no, exactly. But yeah, it's just extremely important that we all hold the federal government and hold our MPs in Newfoundland and Labrador to account, because I do think that by the fact that the federal government has kind of alleviated this responsibility on themselves, they're leaving Newfoundland and Labrador out to dry as the province with the lowest rate of a bachelor's degree. We need to see investment from the federal government in post-secondary education, and I think now is as good a time as ever to demand that.
Hear to that. Nicholas Keogh, always appreciate your contributions to the program. Chairperson for the Canadian Federation of Students, the Newfoundland and Labrador branch. Thanks for your time on this. This is an important, I'm not just throwing this sideways. This is an important conversation about access. Our brightest, youngest and brightest, just having access based on, or not having access based on all these other factors is a real crime, a real shame. Thanks again for your time, and please keep this one on the burner. And we won't wait for another 50 years.
Absolutely. Thank you.
The best of Open Line returns shortly.
Right to line number 2, and Wallace, you're on the air.
Good morning, David. How are you doing?
Morning, Brian. David's listening in, though.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
That's all right, but no sweat. I've been called everything.
Like you just said, it's Tuesday, not Monday.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I'm trying to remind myself, but I don't mind others chipping in as well.
Yeah. Anyway, you're doing a great job. I got to tell you that. You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The reason I'm calling is about the Ministry of Fishery, what they announced there last week for the recreation food fishery on the northern peninsula, northeast coast, Trinity Bay, and also on the south coast of Labrador.
Yeah, and 2J3KL got the best of it.
Yeah, 2J3KL, yeah. But they're giving them 7 days a week. To get their fish, and they got 7 days a week to option to the southwest coast there, 3 PS. But only got 3 days, which we was get. That's what we've been gotten now since I've been at it now for the last 3 or 4 years. What I'm trying to say is, there are days and days and days that we couldn't get out. The 3 days we couldn't get out Saturday and Sunday and Monday, so we don't get out Saturday or Sunday. Monday come we get out for half a day, but we didn't get the other days option to give to us. That's it. We didn't get our fish, and they shut it down due to the fact saying that the southwest coast here that the cod stock is down. My question to the minister is, why did you shut down the halibut fishery for last month? Because due to the fact there was too much cod. When they were going out and getting their halibut, they coming in and 1,500 to 2,000 pound of codfish, so they had to shut it down. There's too much cod.
Well, there's a good lag on the science, I guess. Look, what's happening in real time right now is probably not going to be factored into exactly, to the rules that were just established for the 2026 cod fishery, for the food fishery, or people want to call it the recreational. Some people don't like recreational; they'd rather residential. The landings that are happening right now, really would have no direct correlation to the science and to the decisions that were made for this particular year. I mean, obviously we know some of those studies are done a year and a half, 2 years in advance, and then they're applied after the fact, and who knows what could happen to the stock after that. But is that what you're referring to, or?
Well, what I'm looking at is like the three PS there, the cow stocks you said were down, but I mean, the last couple of years, I mean, the cow stock's been up here. They've been getting their fish. They're coming in when they're going out getting their fish, even when they were out bringing in, say, three tubs of trawl or something like that, 4,000 and 5,000 pound of fish. I mean, cow stock might be in good shape on the Southwest Coast. Other than to get that, when we guys goes out there, recreation fishery, there's 40, 50, or 60 boats. With alligator, we only allow 15 fish a day. That's 15 fish a day, which is 15 fish per boat per day. If you got 3 guys aboard the boat, or you got a letter signed from the doctor, you're catching fish from. You can catch fish for another guy that can't get out on the water. Then, but now that you got it, there's 7 days a week down there. You can catch 5 people on the boat could get 25 fish, which is the same thing. If 5 people in the boat there catch 25 fish, but we're not getting the wet. What we're saying, we're not getting the wetter. Down into the bays, yes, you go out in the bay anytime. I mean, and you can get a bit of fish. There's no bays here. When we go there, we're right out in the Atlantic Ocean, right there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that issue of safety regarding weather was the most, serious points brought up in the current planning. I mean, look, this was a lot about the stock and the availability of it and what's left of it. When you say the turbot, are you talking about the bycatch of cod that's coming up with it?
Yeah,
and the numbers. I got you. Yep.
I mean, when they're going out and sit there 3 or 12 tubs of trawl at Halibut,
yep.
And according to what they're bringing in, I mean, hopefully the poor guys, because they ain't got much on the go from now. Well, once they're bringing up the halibut on the trawl in, they're getting more codfish than the halibut. Mm. Like if you're getting, say you get 500 pound halibut, you got about 1,500 pound of codfish.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the stocks and wherever they're getting the information, somebody's not doing their homework or whatever. And the safety of the fishery, we go back to, if I had 3 guys aboard the boat last year, we're allowed with 15 fish. Now, them little boats, 18-foot boat, 20-foot boat, you can bring 5 guys or 6, 7 guys aboard, because they're all out with 5 fish each. That's it. I mean, and they're going to do it because they're not going to get out Monday or Tuesday, or they're not going to get out Saturday or Sunday. But if we have the option like they got down there 7 days a week, then Saturday and Sunday is bad. All we're saying is, okay, like next week, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, they're after a good day, we can go and get our fish.
Yeah, it was a concern that Merv Wiseman brought up earlier, exactly with the same issue. I mean, obviously Merv's background in search and rescue and safety on the ocean. Being locked into periods when you may not be able to get out still makes very little sense as far as the realities of our weather, let alone on the South Coast. Just because I got another caller there, Wallace, I'll give you a sec to wrap up. I got another caller on food fishery. I want to try to squeeze him for a break. Go ahead.
Okay, well, that's the case for today. Like, I mean, the people here, we got representatives on the coast. I don't know why they don't get on open line and then speak up for the fishermen, which is the job that they should be doing, and the open line fishery here. I mean, the union. We don't hear anything from the union or hear anything from the rip race. The guys that's been our rip for years, get on the open line and speak on the behalf of the fishery here. Safety is the main course here. We're going to take 5, 6 guys out in a boat. I mean, you're looking half day. You're looking for trouble.
Yeah, maybe people are not just hesitant to call only because you're doing such a good job in their absence. Wallace, maybe that's it.
Anyway, thanks a lot for taking my call.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's continue on the food fishery path with Ross. Ross, you're on line 1. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
I'm also from the South Coast here in Newfoundland. I would like to say that I am in support of conservation and management of our food fishery and also all the resources we have here in Newfoundland. And no matter what we do, we're not going to be able to please everybody. But I have a real problem with this 3 days a week here on the South Coast due to the weather conditions we have. I don't know why the minister didn't take a little bit of time and think about an easy way to solve this, because an easy fix is count up the number of days times the amount of fish that a person will be allowed to have and issue tags to areas where the fishery is limited. Then you can pick and choose your safe days to go fishing. The people that work on Saturdays and Sundays and are restricted just 1 day a week to go fishing would be able to go Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on their days off, whatever. Like, there was absolutely no thought put into this whatsoever. I don't begrudge the people on the northeast coast the quota they have. More power to them. If the fish is there, let them catch it. But please be fair to the other people and give us a tag. Give us a tag program. You have so many tags. And go when the conditions are proper. And go when the fish is there. That wouldn't take very much to create that. We have tags for everything else. We have, moose tags, caribou tags, black bear tags. Like, we have tags for everything. How come we can't have tags for the resident food fishery in areas where the quota is less than other areas? That's a simple fix, and it would make so many people happy just to be able to get out when the weather is comfortable to go.
It would seem to make real common sense, Ross, but you know what they say about common sense?
Yeah, there's very little of it today.
Yeah, it's not all that common, hey? It just seems really the focus here was at least very first priority was the science and was the stocks. They look at the West Coast and the South Coast, where there's a moratorium still in effect for commercial fishing along the along the West Coast. And but you listen to the anecdotal, experience of people who are on the water, and like I said, the bycatch coming up with the turbot, which on the West Coast and in the Gulf, the turbot fishery is massive, has always been another trade-off in some corners, some would argue.
Right.
But this is clearly based primarily on science, and it seems like that whole issue, the reality of when you can go based on the weather and how safe it might be, and whether you put you or yourself or your, the few friends that you got going out for a couple in jeopardy on a loppy day when you probably wouldn't, but you got 1 day left because you only got 3 during that week. That's a problem.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem, and I don't think it's fair to us as individuals. Like I say, I agree totally with a limit or a quota, whatever. Like, that's fine. If the fish is not able to sustain 7 days a week at 5 fish a day, fine. That we can accept that. What we can't accept is that our hands are tied and we get less than half of the time to catch fish that other people in the province get. And we are open to extreme weather conditions down here. We're like our hands are tied before we get started. Mm-hmm. And that is not fair. That is not treating people equal. And that's a lot of the problem with a lot of things that happen in this whole country. There are so many different rules for so many different peoples.
And so many of them don't seem to have a first-hand experience of what that rule should look like. I think if you took a few of those bureaucrats or a few of the people up in the high offices and the decision makers in the ADMs and put them out in a skiff or a dory for a Saturday afternoon when the wind turns, it clouds over, northeaster comes up, and all of a sudden your nice little sheet of glass water that you're on is now pushing you sideways back and forth, and you're a bit white knuckle and you're worried.
Yes, you're in a panic mode then to get in safely. Yeah.
It happens. It can turn in a moment.
It's not like us people on the South Coast are asking for more. We're just asking for a fair timeline to be able to partake in this. Like, we're not asking for 7 days a week, 5 fish a day like the rest of the province. That's great for those people. What we are asking for is an opportunity that we can go when it's comfortable.
And safe.
I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy if I can only catch 5 fish a day for 3 days. Okay, I'm allowed 15 fish. I'm quite happy with that. I don't have a problem with it. but please let me go when I can go in comfort. You know, like last year I only got out 3 or 4 times because we had so much wind here. You know, here on the south coast now since the lobster season opened. I bet you we've had 7 days of the lobster season that even the lobster fishermen couldn't get out to haul their pots because of the wind. You know, and that's a big concern. And the other concern is the people that work on Saturday and Sunday are not being given an equal chance to get a little bit of fish for the winter.
Yeah.
You know, like it's no big deal. Just have for the South Coast and the West Coast, have a tag system. You know, give us 100 tags or whatever it adds up to be. If we win every day, we got our quota. Give us those and let us fulfill them at our leisure and not depending on rolling the dice against getting in trouble and having a bad experience.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, that's only common sense.
Agreed. You know, a hard set like that of 3 days blanket period just does not accept the realities of our Newfoundland weather and the unpredictability of it. And, you know, it's just, you just can't have situations where people are thinking about it and not sure whether they should go and knowing that they have a limited time and they're actually taking chances because of it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there was a couple of times last year, there was no fish here. There was a couple of times last year I went just because that was the only day I could go.
Yep.
Knowing that I'm going out to burn $100 worth of gas and I'll probably come in empty-handed.
Well, look, let's get a follow-up from the minister. I mean, Joanne Thompson was pretty, open and when she made the announcement on Friday, and I'm sure she's open to further discussions, or at least to talk about this and discuss it, and just give us a rationale, that she's been given as to why there are no changes to that. Give you a sec to wrap.
The only other thing I'd like to say, if we do get a chance to give her a response back, if she would also address the recreational scallop food fishery, which there was no mention of. That's another thing that I've been at for 2 years with her, and I can't get a response from her.
Okay, on the list.
Thank you very much, Brian. You have yourself a wonderful day.
The best of Open Line returns shortly.
Let's go to line number 4, and Tommy, you're on the air.
Hey, Brian, how are you this morning?
Good. For a Tuesday, sorry. Ad nauseum.
Yes, for a Tuesday. Feels like a Monday, though.
It feels a lot like it, I got to say, which is why I got to keep reminding myself out loud.
Yes, that's right. I just wanted to have a little chat about the fuel prices here this morning. I'm looking at gas, buddy, and I mean, I'm not oblivious to the fact that the Iran war and the strait being closed and stuff is causing havoc in the oil prices. But Newfoundland is paying far and away the highest in all Canada. People think BC is. But that's in the Vancouver area. And BC is actually paying almost 10 cents less than us as a whole. We're paying a lot more. I don't get it. I mean, the government of Newfoundland is bringing in major royalties right now at $115 for Brent crude. I mean, we could get some help with that for sure. It's all relative. While the price is high, help us out. You're making huge royalties. That's just my thoughts on it. I mean, is there any reason that you know of why we're paying so much more as an oil-producing province? Well,
as oil-producing, we're using very little of our own. Yeah. We're exporting it and having to bring it in, which is that 5% that we've been paying since we don't have a refinery anymore that refines oil and gas. That is in theory, I'm not sure to what level the production is out there right now. Anyone could fill me on that. I haven't delve into the books or anything for the Brea refinery out in Come by Chance, but the isolation factor, you mentioned the war, prices across, and it's not just like a jurisdiction now, it's the prices up. You can say, well, the price of a barrel of oil is this around the world, and the Americans, for example, will say that they have other sources, but it's still, there's a global price that is set. And we will always be on the disparaged side, given the isolation of it. But the Premier and the government has said that there will or could be some more relief in the fall. I mean, that's 3 or 4 months away. They've indicated that, depending on if the situation is still like this. And we have heard from every expert around the world that says even if the war ended today, this relief will not, there'll be no relief seen from it, any kind of rebound or reset of the prices to what we're used to, under $2, i.e., maybe before next year. So, the waiting to see if it's still going to be this bad in the fall seems to be inconsequential at this point. It would seem more like,
it does.
Something's got to be done. Something will have to be done then. And as you said, meanwhile, it's the same old story, right? The government reaps the profits from the increased oil revenue while she's hovering around $100 or more and continuing to go up. Meantime, we have to suffer at the pumps. And
that's another thing too.
Oil tank.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the other thing too is I wondered if we'd be better off without the PUB setting the oil prices. And the reason I say this now, I keep on saying, I know that they're either here to help us, but at the end of the day, do your Ultramars, your Irvings, to your fuel suppliers, do their profit margin change one bit when the PUB jacks the prices up?
Well, it's a good.
Or is it just us that got to pay?
Oh, well, I mean, look, that's the whole point, right? Whoever is supplying it has to continue to be able to afford to supply it. So they're going to be compensated one way or the other. And the whole point of.
But their profit margins don't change 1 cent. Only us.
But the risk to them does, right? And the uncertainty. And that's what they're playing off. That's what the stock markets play off. That's what don't get me started with the betting that's going on the wars and what's going to happen. Polymarket and these sorts of things. There's a conversation for us to have if anyone's been following the millions that are being reaped by some people on the inside, on the know, with what's happening with steps in the war. I mean, whether it was Venezuela or what's going on currently in the Gulf. People are betting on everything.
But I'd love to be paying $4 a gallon for gas.
Pardon me?
I'd love to be paying $4 a gallon. We're paying over $8 at the current prices we're paying now. You know what I mean, per gallon if you do the calculation.
Yeah, and they're doing. I think it's risen from about $3 to $4.60 or $4.70 a gallon in the States now. So push is going to have to come to shove there sooner or later. Just because I'm right on the break, Tommy. Quick wrap up.
No problem, buddy.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. No, I just wondering. I think if my last point, I guess, is that, if we got to take a hit at the pumps, I think the fuel suppliers, your Irvings, your Ultramars, your Esso should have to take a small hit too, not just us. But that's, I know that the economy got to roll, but that's my 2 cents for it.
No, fair enough. I mean, they have to stay in business, and the profit margins are what it's all about, whether it's the grocery stores or whatever. Absolutely. Like, we wonder why, are they just jacking it for more profit margin, or are they, struggling and they have to keep a certain benchmark? Certain companies will have a profit level high that they want to, and it's not break even, it's higher than that they want to return on their investment, right? And right now, that uncertainty is what's driving prices just as much as the actual price of a barrel of oil. Tommy, appreciate the call, man.
And everything else too, yeah.
Yep.
All right, thanks. I appreciate you listening to me this morning, and you have a good day and a good week.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line.
Let's go to line number 2 and welcome Andrew Safer, mindfulness instructor and trainer, workshop facilitator, and author. You're on the air. Good morning, Andrew. Andrew on line 2, Dave? Yep, we'll have to call him back. Is that right? I see him up on the screen and maybe on mute, holding on. We'll try him back in a moment. I'm just going to, now Andrew, of course, just as a heads up, and I assume we're going to get him on the line here, toot sweet, in a moment. Speaking about, and again, a warning, just a heads up to everybody that we will be talking about suicide and issues surrounding suicide prevention through mindfulness training, actually, which is something that, I've come across a few times in different discussions and topics, whether it's at a journalist, as a conference, and other topics where you really have to try to, when you suffer these, life-changing events, things can hit you suddenly out of the blue, negative things, and you have to, some people can deal with it, have strength of mind to be able to put it into perspective, calm themselves and get through it. Others, not a chance. Others don't have that strength of mind or mindfulness, and training can help that. And let's go right to line number 4 and try Andrew again. Andrew, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's great now. Sorry about that. I don't know what we have. We have some gremlins from time to time, but...
Okay.
So I was just kind of giving a little preamble, I suppose, to the conversation we're going to have, and just for the fair warning to everybody, because this can be, of course, triggering when we're talking about suicide, but suicide prevention through mindfulness training. And again, it's something that I've, as I mentioned, I've covered as a journalist. I'm not completely immune to the idea of this and how strength of mind, when things come at you out of the blue, People can go one of two ways. You can find yourself in real despair and hopeless and see all the negative. Other people can steady themselves and try to address it proactively. What's your advice, Andrew, and through your experience?
Right. Well, first of all, I'm aware that this can really happen to anyone. If you have a love relationship that falls apart suddenly, for example, or you're being mercilessly bullied, those are a couple of examples we've seen, that people end up having these suicidal thoughts. So the thing is, with mindfulness practice, we can gain a better understanding of our mind in general and also our thought process. It's a meditation practice that's involved. And with the practice, we're bringing our attention to, first of all, let's say our feet on the floor, something that is here in the present moment. And then as we're sitting here, we're noticing when our thoughts have started to wander, we're going other places. And we can acknowledge that and bring our attention back to, if it's our breath or our feet on the floor, we call that a stable anchor of awareness. So we keep noticing when we go off and we keep coming back. And what that's doing, a few things. It's showing us that we actually have a choice. We don't have to be trapped in our thoughts. There's another place to go. And we're getting practice with that kind of navigation back and forth. So that's a big factor in how I've seen the mindfulness training really help people who have been having suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, and of course, you have these sessions. I just looking at that. Is it this week or next week? Sorry, May 27th. Right, yeah. You have a group, that gets together, can discuss these things. You want to tell me a little about that?
Yes, exactly. So that's next Wednesday, and it's 7:30 p.m. This group is going to be on Zoom, so it means that it's going to be accessible to anyone in the province or elsewhere. We've done a couple of these groups before that were in person, but this is going to be on Zoom. So it's really for anyone who's been having suicidal thoughts. If they were having them in, let's say, the recent past, and they're worried that they're going to come back or whatever, that would certainly be a reason to check this out. What I'm saying, it is an 8-week program, but people can show up at the first session on the 27th. They'll get a very good idea about the whole thing in that session, and then they can decide if they want to keep going, fine. If not, it's okay. It's basically free. There's a $25 deposit that is refunded at the end of the program. But for an 8-week program, I'm saying it's basically free. And like I say, we've done this twice before, the full 8 weeks. One thing that's startling is the outcomes. We ask people in the evaluation to rate the intensity of their suicidal thoughts. So not just like how many suicidal thoughts, like how intense is it for you on a scale of 1 to 10. Then we ask it at the end of the last session, 8 weeks later, same question. We found that in the last group, which was a year ago, there was a 53% reduction in the number representing the percentage of intensity, suicidal thoughts, 53% less. And when we did the pilot group, it was 41.7% less. So that's a really big factor because it's not just a matter of if you have suicidal thoughts, but if they get intense, that's when you can get closer to actually acting on them, right? So to see that it's making a very significant dent in that intensity factor is a big thing.
Yeah, and it certainly stands to reason that the more of these conversations that people have with people of like mind, whether it is of strong mind, less mind, or a suicidal mind, just the thoughts, it makes complete sense that, the more of this exposure you have to this kind of, thinking and training, if you will, it would decrease it somewhat, if nothing else, just to knowing that you have others who are in the similar boat. We really need that. I found I got a lot of response around COVID. People there was a solace people took in the fact that everybody was going through the same thing, you know? And when you have a group of people, and when you have a group of people such as this who are, you know, having the same kind, there's a comfort in that, a solace, and I'm sure an advantage to being able to prevent the you know, the worst case scenario, which would be taking one's own life.
For sure. Realizing that you're not alone. Everyone, you know, mentions that it's being a big factor, and so, which is why I love the groups. You know, there's a whole dynamic with the group that you don't get, you know, one-on-one.
Oh, sure.
You can still do a lot one-on-one, but yeah, it's terrific.
And I'm thinking also the Zoom option is it's a benefit too. I mean, you know, there certainly for first-time people who might be thinking about this, you know, it's maybe a little bit of you know, a negative connotation or what's the word I'm for? A deterrent maybe to go, because you know, going in person about this just makes it that tougher. At least with the Zoom link, you have the privacy of your own home, and you can log on and log off whenever. You don't have to get up and leave the room, and you don't necessarily want to. You never know how your emotions will be in that moment, you know. So having the privacy, the Zoom link, I think, is brilliant.
Yeah, plus they can turn the video off if they want. And we're going to be seeing a black screen, but you know, some people will do that, and that's fine.
Tell me once again, and our listeners, just Andrew, what's the when and where and how?
Yep. Okay, so the where is easy because it's going to be in everyone's own home because of the Zoom, and it's going to be Wednesday, May 27th, 7:30 p.m. Newfoundland time. And the main thing is to register. So if they go to the website, and I'll give you the URL in a second, they'll see the poster for the suicide prevention through mindfulness training. And they'll see at the very top of that, there's a link that's clickable to the registration form. On the poster itself, the link is there, but it's not clickable because it's a JPEG. But anyway, so if they go to this website, and I'll tell you how to get very easily to this poster. They go to www.safermindfulness. It's one word. I'll spell it SAFER, just like the word safer mindfulness, mindfulness.com. So they go there, and in the navigation, they'll see workshops and programs. That's at the top of the page, and they click on that. That'll bring them to where the poster is, and the other information, the outline, the titles of the different sessions of the program are there as well. They can see more about it. And thank you so much for this.
This is the best of VOCM Open Line with Brian Callahan.
Let's go to Paul on line number 1, and you're on the air.
Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Paul. Thanks for your patience, and thanks for all the information you've sent me via email. I think I mentioned to you much of it. Yeah, I can do those Googles sometimes, but you know, I'm always wary of some of the information, but I know you have a pretty good handle on what you like to talk. So where do you want to start? Want to talk the hydro rates or the MOU, the question of the day?
Actually, no. I probably could have changed that subject heading. It's and just to correct, you know, some people at Newfoundland Hydro are saying, what's he talking about, flawed? Flawed is not the appropriate word. Let me use progressive.
Okay.
Progressive in that I think the crux of that little AI overview, Google AI overview summary I had in that initiating email, that basically summed it up. And all that's saying, for your listeners, is we have a fixed rate here in Newfoundland on the interconnected island grid, 15.2 roughly. Everybody sees that on their bill. It's probably going to go up, hopefully not too much, but that's the trend. Every year it goes up. And basically, the crux of that is Newfoundland Hydro is their wholesaler of electricity. They have full domain. I think it's Bill 61, curiously drafted back there in Muskrat Falls times. But there was a reason for that. It was necessary to do that to give Newfoundland Hydro full authority, we'll call it, over our electricity grid from generation right down to distribution. And when it gets to distribution, they basically, unless they're directly providing power, which they do to outliers, I'll call them, rural customers in a lot of cases, and those in Labrador included. Everyone else, like say here in St. John's, is Newfoundland Power. We all should know that. So Newfoundland Power is Newfoundland Hydro's retailer of electricity. At the end of the day, Newfoundland Hydro's, we all know through rate mitigation going up 2.25, I think it is, every year. Logic has it that the wholesaler puts the price up. Newfoundland Power is going to follow suit, put their price up. And that's going to come to a head, and I think 2030 is the estimate when all of a sudden they'll probably go up in the mid-20s. So having said all that, in terms of, say, 25 cents per kilowatt hour, that's alarming. Should be alarming for everybody. So everybody's hanging their hat on a deal. And this MOU, so I'm going to jump from the rates. They're not flawed. They're fixed. They're the simplest. There's no time of use in terms of there's no open market rate that you and I or anyone in this province can avail of. Let's buy electricity at 6 cents, 7 cents. That only happens in market-based jurisdictions like Ontario has it, Alberta has it, but at the end of the day, and Quebec, they have a great hierarchy of what they call tiered rates. So my son, for example, who lives in Quebec, can avail of the 7 odd point whatever cents per kilowatt hour. I have to pay double that. It is what it is. But what we have to realize in Newfoundland, we need to move now towards the new grid. And the new grid, Brian,
or the smart grid, maybe?
It's not new.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the smart grid before, which always, well, I'll let you go on. I don't want to interrupt because it's important the context of it. But go ahead.
Because all we've heard I've been listening to for 2 years now and done my readings and researches and AI overviews. And at the end of the day, there is this, I mentioned this, people can look it up. It's a smart grid document put out by Natural Resources Canada that says we have a smart grid in Canada. A smart grid just means that it's allowing things like to go from, I don't want to get too much into this, but there's a thing called grid inertia. And grid inertia traditionally has been based on no solar, no wind, the cleanest, most preferred power is what we have, hydro. Basically hydro, if you look at our pie chart, if you will, of available fuels and resources, hydro dominates over 90+%, guaranteed. As a matter of fact, if we weren't selling all of our power for little or nothing to Quebec, that 5,800 roughly megawatts, potentially up to 11 to 12, gigawatts. Okay, so right now, you with me? Churchill Falls right now, roughly rounded up, because people round up numbers these days into trillions and billions, but in the gigawatts, we're at about 6. Can we get it developed to twice that? Sure we can, but we can afford it. Quebec can, and that's our low risk under the MOU. If we get Churchill Falls to basically take it on, develop everything, we have no risk. We have no monies to put into it. People are not going to like this. Quebec should have. They have more risk. They have more at stake. They basically become the majority owners in a sense. That is going to come out in the MOU. We don't want that to happen.
Right. I mean, the ownerships would still remain 65 or whatever it is, 35 for CFLCO.
Roughly for the current paid-off development, Churchill Falls.
Yes.
But any new developments
that would remain unchanged according to the MOU.
Yeah, well, what people have to realize, the new developments, for which in terms of you look at rates of return and so on, are not transformative. And if people haven't read the MOU, read it. People haven't read Mike Wilson's letter and following publications since then. And Mike Wilson stands out to me because he's a numbers man. He's did the calculations. And the whole challenge of this extra independent review, the common denominator is Mike Wilson. Yep. So they changed out bodies, but they didn't. And there's a good reason why they held on to Mike Wilson, because he had all the right questions, did the number crunching, and came back and said, basically, I don't want to point fingers at personalities, but it's not about personality. We have capable people, capable engineers, CEOs, retired accountants like Mike Wilson, but an impressive resume. And basically, it became he said, she said. Mike Wilson saying this, Jennifer saying that, Jennifer Williams. Now, are the down in the weed details of what the accurate numbers are going to come out in the MOU? I hope. It won't come out in the executive summary, but if we get more detail on what the findings were, for example, there's many numbers, but is it 5.9? Is it 2.7? Is it 1.6 as a starting point in our escalator? We still don't know, do we?
Well, no, and the MOU pegs at the effect, I think it was 5.9, as you said, and that's 30 times higher, obviously, than the current price, which was next to nothing.
Very, very appealing, even as a starting point.
Yes.
And it's supposed to go up to 37.
Well, that's the highlight, right? That's the sexy part, because that's where we really got nailed, shafted in 69. So that's the easy fruit, right?
Right, but what was missing from that whole, I mean, if we suggest, and even from the House of Assembly transcripts, which put me to sleep one night, I was trying to read, back over a year ago, and all the debate back and forth, and the power advisory guys were there, but they said nothing new. These independent, highly paid consultants basically simply repeated what Jennifer Williams and Michael Savia said at the time. We now have an escalated clause. This is fundamentally different, right?
Yes.
Sure it is. But if you do the present value analysis, we're down around 2 point something.
Nothing was ever going to get drafted
over the life of the project.
and nothing was ever going to get drafted without that.
Value analysis, because as an engineer, I did that up the yin-yang and did very well in that economics course. And so I'm sure that Jennifer Williams and Ben Oates of Forsenel and all those people who have commented on those numbers, for them to say that Mike Wilson is wrong, challenges Mike Wilson as an accountant that he probably doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, we'll find out this afternoon if Mike Wilson knows what he's talking about. Now, is he going to be there to explain his numbers or his assessments? I don't think he really has to, because Tony Wakeham, Premier Wakeham, enabled Mike Wilson and the now two additional members, Mr. Huskelson and the other guy.
Guy Holborn.
Yeah. So
Guy Holborn, sorry.
Mr. Holborn Guy Holborn hasn't stood out, but he does stand out, because if you do your research on him, he pointed out all the facts of the analysis that basically there were shortcomings, obviously, with Muskrat Falls, and now he has a reference point. His reference point, I'm not going to speak for him, would be what happened, what was wrong with Muskrat Falls, and now in this proposal, because it's just a framework of proposals, not a deal. We haven't signed,
that's right,
as we did back in Churchill Falls, 1969 contract. People have to realize fundamentally they're different, because every signing was a letter of intent, which was now legally binding. All the signing done so far, as you say, to me, the smoke and mirrors was a year and a half ago. Okay?
When it was actually, when the announcement was made.
When the announcement was made, because you have two premiers who were obviously in discussions for some time, had set up their negotiating teams, and behind the scenes negotiated not a deal, a memorandum of understanding, which is not a letter of intent. Letter of intent is a legally binding contract. Memorandum of understanding is just an understanding, a framework to set the course into these definitive agreements.
Here's what we hope to do someday.
Right. So people say, "Oh my, Danny killed the deal. This one killed the deal." Danny didn't kill no deal. He got out of politics. He said the rest is up to the people in charge, the premier on down, and they bungled it. They and by 2017 and 18, we had Jerome Kennedy and whoever else speaking to this, saying, "I didn't realize this, and I didn't realize that, and I didn't know this was happening." Come on, really? All these officials from government to then Nalcor to now Hydro, because there's some left, they knew. They just didn't want to speak up. Well, this time, with this deal, $225 billion for me and you. Actually, I think Legault and Fury were like $200 billion, but apparently
$222 billion. Yeah, that's a big number, and it looks pretty good on paper. Absolutely.
But if you do the present value analysis, and I totally trust in Mike Wilson's analysis, that's now out there for everyone to see, those numbers are not correct. If I can get $200 billion. Or even close to that, up to 2075. That sounds really attractive, doesn't it? But if let me use this analogy: 17 million till 2041. Okay, if you do the present value on that, it's probably less than 10 million for sure. All depends on the rate of return and the discounted rate.
I just wonder too. You mentioned Brian Wilson. I got the Bare Naked Ladies on my head. Michael Wilson. You mentioned not being there. Does it not, further cloud or raise skepticism and criticism when they're changing?
No, and that's unfortunate because
it's unfortunate.
Again,
it could be a great deal. It could be the best thing since sliced bread. But when these things happen, it just erodes the public confidence and trust you have in what they're doing.
And I caution the public to look at it this way. And people say, well, let's get over 69 now. That was just a mess, and we need to move on. But we need that as a reference point.
And we're just over a half hour away from the announcement from the Premier and the Energy Minister on the expert panel's report on the MOU. Paul, what are you expecting?
I don't want to get into that language. Coming from the Liberals, they succeeded in killing it and all that good stuff. So, as all partisan politics aside, we had someone speak out, risk his reputation, come out and say this whole framework is flawed. Now, was there an opportunity to fix it? Well, that all depends on what they found. Mm-hmm. And if it was terribly out of sync, I'll call it, speaking grid talk now, but if it was out of sync, it's simply not going to work. So how do we frame it so we can work with Quebec? I'm not saying we can't do a deal with Quebec. Quebec is more populated. They have the engineering. Since 1969, they always had the engineering expertise. Even though their James Bay was not on schedule and over budget and not like the ideal project, they made their mistakes, but they learned from it. So they're the best candidates for a province now that is really and this is to their advantage. We need money. We need a project. We need people at work, and we need to deal with that $500 million a year bill. Mm-hmm. To jump in to bed with them right now is not going to happen, but they're not running away, because the difference between now and 1969, Quebec didn't want to do a deal, and that was the problem. They hemmed and hawed, and they dragged their feet. And Smallwood, as I hate to say it, the champion of Churchill Falls at the time, because he didn't sign anything off. You have to realize.
No, it was the companies. Yeah, it was CFLCO and Hydro-Quebec, yeah.
They signed off on all of that. But between him and Lessard, they drew their lines. And basically Smallwood said, we need shovels in the ground. Let's get the project going. He signed off, I think it's actually in 68. It was 2 years instead of 3 years, really.
And Paul, I got about give you about a minute to wrap up. Sorry.
Quick. Yep, minute. Yep, I know. I'm looking at the watch.
Yeah, go for it.
So the difference is, back then, the energy grid wasn't as it is now. Right now, it's transformational. The energy grid is smarter. It's going from basically traditional inertia-based to what they call synthetic inertia-based, inverter-based, power electronics-based, wind, solar, intermittent sources, battery storage. Tom brought it up earlier, even though hydro is technically not a battery, but it is forever. And as long as the levels stay the same, it is forever. So batteries are not forever, by the way.
I got to get going.
But anyway, the point being, it's a new time. It's a new era. Churchill needs more power. Whether they get it from us or not, I don't know. But they need it.
Yep.
And they're craving it to make their emission targets.
And it'll be fascinating to see what happens and what role the feds will play ultimately in this as well. Paul, look, only because I got to get going. Thanks for the call. Let's do this again. I'm sure we'll have lots to discuss after today's announcement.
Well, hey, we got to see what happens with the announcement and what the devil. People say there's no devil, but there may be a devil in these details. Let's just see.
Okay. Thanks again. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Keep it tuned to 590. Drive safely. Arrive alive, everyone. VOCM cares.